that record button. Hopefully the Zoom voice let you know. Okay, so there's quite a list of folks. There's actually 44 that were registered to participate. So, you know, we have about a fourth of that right now. And I like to give the customary 5 minutes anyway for Zoom stuff, but also for a Zoom room change, right? I didn't realize my personal room ID hasn't been the meeting link. So there we go. This is my usual room for other things. So if I see a couple of people have used the chat, Marianne and Pat, other folks, it would be great if you could, or if you'd like to share with the rest of us where you're tuning in from, where in the world, and then how you heard about the meeting. So Eventbrite does a really good job of just kind of casting a net for advertising, which is great. But as you will learn during the presentation and some stargazing talk, I'm in Ontario, Oregon, and represent the Friends of the Owyhee, the beautiful banner that goes along with the meeting tonight. Is Friends of the Owyhee based in Ontario, Oregon, that's really conservation advocacy based. We do this through education like this, through stewardship events. So actually today, I just rushed back from helping in Sucker Creek State Natural Area put up some brand new signs. And then we also do this through activities that involve recreation. So, you know, my boss fishes. I enjoy pretty much anything to do with some water or rocks that are hiking, and my colleague, the same, that's a marine biologist by background, but grew up here and has a love for the ecology of the desert steppes. So, yep, see, I figured I'd still be hitting the admin button for a couple of minutes. Okay, I see, yeah, really good, Arizona and Burns. So that does remind me, the other hosts of this talk tonight are the Ontario Community Library. That's where I'm based, and Dar and the crew over there have always been really great to let me do all kinds of presentations when I'd like. And then the Vail Public Library has also advertised recently, I think they did last month, to let folks know that this network exists to learn about stargazing in Eastern Oregon. And then over there in Harney County, so some Friends of the Owyhee over there. So Lori has actually been on one of our conservation advocacy trips, and we've talked a lot, and it was really great to connect through this network, which is the Oregon Outback Dark Sky Network. So that's about the customary time, and I think this is about all of our participants. So welcome tonight, guys. I'm going to minimize the chat and start sharing my screen. If you weren't here to catch it earlier, this meeting is recorded. We always record them and load them up to YouTube later so others can watch later. And that's also to say that you can rewatch this, but you can also watch material from previous meetings. So if I'm not wrong, I only notice a handful of people that are return introduction to stargazing folks. And then there's a lot of new folks. So to you new folks, oh, and here's somebody else coming in. If you know, if this is or is not what you're looking for or what you thought, then always give us an email. I love to hear from everybody, but I teach at the local community college as well as this conservation gig. And there I'm a geologist by background that's done research in Death Valley and Montana and Alaska and a little bit in Mexico. But here not only do I work in conservation, but I teach in the 2-year college. And that I do geology, of course, which is a lot of fun talking about rocks, but also meteorology, looking up at the sky. Oceanography, I get to teach every once in a while when I'd like. And then an energy class, which is all about kind of the physics of energy, but also how do we use Earth's resources to get all this wonderful electric energy that we are using. And then, of course, how does that have an impact on the environment? This is, of course, what gets me into conservation. But my fifth class that I teach, which involves me here, is astronomy. I've been an amateur astronomer so for quite a while, being a geologist that goes out in camps, more admitting, overnight talking and looking at the stars during the summer. So we're moving into the season that I really have engaged with the stars the longest, and these constellations become old friends. Now, I teach astronomy in the wintertime because the sun goes down so early that I can take students out on field trips during a night class. So that's why, a little bit about me and why I stand here before you today. So I'm actually at the college, Treasure Valley Community College, and I wanted to show some props before we officially begin the presentation material tonight, because it's a lot of slides and a lot of here's this and here's that. But you and I are probably familiar with, as I'll talk about later, like an app that you would use on your phone to maybe use to look at the stars. Or perhaps you've used a star wheel before. Misplaced my star wheel. But they're kind of a two-dimensional surface that gives a map of the night sky, and then you can kind of twist the thing to line it up with tonight or tonight's time. But this is another really interesting way to not only think about the Earth and the spheres, but also to check up on which constellations we're looking at. So this is called a celestial sphere. So just like a globe, and you can see the globe in the middle, this is more of a model or a conception, and it is not to scale. Obviously, the little ball around here is meant to be the sun, not the moon. And what's interesting here, you'll notice right away that the sun, if I turn the dial, goes around the Earth. So this is a not to scale model. What this is meant to represent is if you were standing on that ball right there in the middle, just imagine yourself standing on that globe in there, and you looked up at night, okay, like we're going to do tonight after we learn stargazing material, right? If you look towards the North Star, that's for me, that's over there behind you guys. And we've learned about the North Star before, talked about Polaris, how to find Polaris. You would be standing on this globe and looking in this direction in the way that I'm holding it towards the North Pole. And in fact, this bar that's in the middle of the Earth, if you project that out into space, or this celestial sphere, that actually intersects Polaris or the North Star. So the sphere, this glass looking clear sphere on the outside, is meant to be as if the celestial heavens were on a one-dimensional or a sort of a globe surface, as if they were a sphere around us, because they're all, a really long distance away. So we couldn't draw a to scale model. But if you take all those distances and you equalize them out and stick them on a globe, that's what this looks like. And this can be a really handy way for thinking about how the Earth turns. You can turn that knob, and how the sun moves through the sky during the year, okay? During the year. And earlier in our stargazing classes, we talked about this line that the sun makes, this curve, this arc that the sun makes through the night sky, and that's the, oh, excuse me, I'm still not admitting people. That's called the ecliptic, where the arc that the sun makes through the night sky, or excuse me, through the day sky, right, is called the ecliptic. But because, there's stars that are out there all the time, even during the daytime, there's stars behind there, but the sun is just such a bright and close star that it prevents us from seeing the stuff in the back. So there's still stars out there. And if you think about all of these constellations through which the sun passes throughout the year, that's about 13 different constellations in this division of space we call constellations. And that's called the Zodiac. So a few lessons ago, I want to say it was in April, we focused on the Zodiac constellations that you could go outside and see that night. Okay. And actually, we're going to kind of continue that talk a little bit tonight. We've been progressively moving through the constellations that we can look up and see every month. So, all right, I have admitted more people while I've been given the warm up here. So Just so you know, this is recorded. You can find this on our YouTube, Friends of the Owyhee YouTube. And we were using the chat to let us know where you're from and let Friends of the Owyhee know how you heard about this interesting online introduction to stargazing, okay? And I guess the last piece to reiterate that we're a conservation-based organization that really cares about stewarding the whole Owyhee region that's outside of our back door, about 7 million acres worth. And part of my love for the earth sciences and astronomy and stargazing is also in education. And I'm really proud to have and live in an area that has such dark, rich night skies, to have these lessons, to go out and talk to, people who come to my college class, people that I'm camping with, or to go to schools. And even though I'm talking about it during the daytime, to give little maps like I'm going to give you guys today, to go out and stargaze for themselves. Okay, enough chitty chat. I'll finally share my screen to go through the slides. Okay. There's all that intro gobbledygook. Debbie, since I can still see your screen, thank you. I love being able to see everybody, so don't be afraid to turn your camera on. Could you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen okay? Perfect. I thought that might be the case. Good. Well, tonight, I'll give you just a tidbit of our usual information, but you can find that on YouTube, which is Gear for Stargazing. The process that I like to lead students or new stargazers through to make it a successful experience. That's the number 2, setting the awareness and the process. And then the importance of natural night skies and a little bit about zodiac constellations. And you know what? I hope I brought in the right presentation here, you guys. Oh gosh. Okay. I do have a problem, but you know what? We can use Stellarium and probably work through it together. Well, geez, that's the worst. Okay, but you can bear with me for a minute as I show you, or as we go through some of the preliminary material, and then we'll get to some of tonight's constellations in a bit. I think I can probably switch the presentation. I have my other computer over here. All right, well, I was queued up by that because number 4, we're going to do a little bit of recap of material that we've looked at before and then look at the zodiac constellation. So for stargazing, you want to be well prepared. This is kind of meant for winter, as you see a little note about summer there, but you're still going with the same mentality that you want to be prepared when you go out at night. It can still be a little bit chilly, especially when the sun goes down at 10 o'clock at night and you're waiting until 10:30 to really see all the stars start to pop. And then you hang out for an hour, and next thing you know, it's midnight and there's a chill in the air. So being prepared for any kind of chill, as well as if you're going to travel outside of town, always carrying a map and some navigation with you so you know where you're going. And then letting other people know if you're going out of town, right? Just those safety things. Then water or something to drink, like the hot cocoa that's recommended here, just something to occupy yourself. I've tried to grill before while out summer stargazing, but kind of the bright light from the grill on the fire, unless I'm willing to wait for a couple of hours to grill and stargaze later, doesn't always work out. But something to occupy yourself while you're out, beyond just the what do I look at. If you're drinking a cup of hot cocoa, it's going to cool down, you're going to have a chance to drink it, and half an hour or 40 minutes will go by where you really have just been kind of star wandering rather than stargazing. Okay. I'd like to suggest a red headlamp if you're going to take any notes in our kits that are available both at the Harney Library. This is the Oregon Outback Dark Sky Networks kits that are available at the Harney County Library and now the Ontario Community Library. You can pick up some information or data collection cards using a sky quality meter. And to take notes, you don't want to ruin your night vision while you're out stargazing, right? So if you're using the whole width of visible wavelength of light, 720 to 400 nanometers worth, then that's really rude to the eyes. So if you can just use the red wavelength in a red light like this, then it's really going to be a lot easier and softer on the eyes to stargaze and take notes. That also goes for if you're using an app like Stellarium. A lot of these apps have the red, sometimes it's a paid feature. I like Stellarium that it's free to download on your desktop and is a wonderful program. But on the app or the phone, it does cost a little bit, but it's a good investment, good program. It does have a red mode, and a lot of other of these programs do too. So that way you can use your phone, take your notes, see where you are, stargaze a little bit with the phone from, if after you've done all of the things from memory, and you don't have a bright cell phone light that's blinding you. Okay, so that's a little bit about some apps, the star wheel, the red light, being prepared, because we want this to be fun and informational and, going out a second time. So if you go out and you kind of feel miserable, then you're setting yourself up for not having the personal experience with the stars and stargazing like you're all looking for, right? And I know that because you're all here, right? We all want these wonderful techniques. So setting your awareness and processes are really important. This is said elsewhere in the same way without the summer changes. This is always, all the time. This is the same process, what we'll do. Know your cardinal directions and where you're at. Then know when the sun sets and when the sun rises. Know the moon phase approximately out and where to expect it. This is all stuff the apps help you do as well, because you can move the time and you can start to plan ahead when you're going out stargazing. I love the moon at night. I don't feel like it ruins stargazing at all. I don't use a telescope very often. So the light bleeding in from the moon really, for stargazing these major constellations with the major bright stars is okay. So tonight, I think we're about 30% waxing. So that's our moon phase tonight. It's still a lovely night to stargaze. Then your hands are a very handy tool to measure the night sky. So holding your arm or hand at arm's length away, that means you're entirely outstretched. Then you can use that to approximately measure distances between stars. Now, it's not going to work if you just hold your hand in front of your face right here, right? It needs to be here. So the ratios of our body are approximately the same as these recommendations given here, which are 10 degrees for your fist, 18 for like a full hand, and about 1.5 degrees or 1 degree for a finger. Okay, then here's a book suggestion I have over on the right-hand side, A Walk Through the Heavens. I've gotten a lot of my stargazing techniques from, well, one from other people and watching like PBS videos, all right, but also books like this, and then experiences with students. We all click with something a little bit different. So this book is really good at using landmarks in the night sky to navigate to the next constellation. And that's kind of how I think when I'm out driving around on dusty roads looking for rocks. Sometimes it's just a landmark that communicates to me on when to turn. So there's other ways to do this stuff out there, and just engaging in it outside is the best. So how do you do that? Well, the process is really important, a process for success, just like when we go into the shower, right? Or we get ready for work. There's a process and a type of routine that sets up those things as being successful. So treat stargazing as a proper process. Yeah, sure, we're kind of having fun and lollygagging around and seeing this exciting celestial world around us. But also, if you have a desire to really know those constellations or those stars and to see them when they come up after they set tomorrow, and to see them again, or maybe when they set for the entire season, like Orion now, you guys. When we first started talking about these stargazing presentations, Orion was the biggest night constellation in the sky, and now that's set. But we'll see Orion return next year as it rises in the east, towards winter. So if you really want to see the stars and the night sky like that, then getting to know the individual names and constellations, a technique like that is really important. So be prepared, focus on what you're doing, take some notes, maybe learning one thing at a time and then practicing it maybe once a week or every night, perhaps, if you're up that late. These are all techniques for, of course, practices all throughout our lives, right? Okay, I want to say just a few things about the night skies, right? I live, let's see, I live right on the edge of this, well, it's this line, but also this light area right here known as the Treasure Valley. Okay, and we're in the middle of this larger polygon. I hope you can see my mouse scrolling around there, which is the we think of it as maybe the Oregon Outback. A lot of this isn't in Oregon. Some of this is Idaho and Nevada, Northern California. But this is in the Oregon Outback Dark Sky Network. This is a lot of what we're talking about is the preservation of light pollution, or the conservation of the dark night skies by setting up preserves, or which are really underlyingly just an agreement to not have light bleeding out unnecessarily from cities, to use lighting that makes sense. And a county like ours that has so much country, right? This is gonna stay dark and great, right? Unless say we wanted to put lights on the highway, on Highway 95 for some reason to illuminate it along the whole way. Well, if that was a need because there was so much traffic on that road, then we would consider ODOT making sure that the lights were not those that bleed up into the night sky and they bleed up so much light pollution that it would draw a big old line through this dark area. So we're trying to have a network of folks throughout Oregon. Idaho has a really rich network of folks in central Idaho that have a dark sky preserve already. And same in the southern states. So down here in southern Utah and northern Arizona, there are also folks and groups like this that are meeting to help municipalities or county governments, BLM, other land managers make decisions around preserving this rich cultural resource that we have, right? This cultural, beautiful resource. So that's a little bit about the Oregon Outback Dark Sky Network and our involvement as Friends of the Owyhee. Conservation it's conservation of energy, right? Conservation of clean water, conservation of air, conservation of all of these resources that we all in the global ecology need to survive and need to live and need to thrive. Let's see, there we go. So here's a little of what I had just discussed in writing, that let's use lighting that makes sense. Okay, so here's some examples of those. Fully shielded light. Let's get the light to where we use it when we need it there, rather than bleeding up on the side of buildings or shooting up into space, right? And polluting the night sky. So here's some other examples of these. And this is probably a good time to, again, say that these are recorded, but also I like to send the slide material out afterwards too. So you can use these links here to go directly to those sites, but there's an international dark sky network as well, right? I mean, we're not alone here, that we all globally, as well as through time, have appreciated the sky. It is a cultural resource that we'd all like to preserve. And here's some examples here in Idaho designation, Sun River, Oregon, wonderful, beautiful area west of me towards the foothills of the Cascades, also has one of these preserves. So if you like the night sky, if you like stars, if you like seeing them wherever you're at and learning about them, then please be an advocate wherever you're at, or here in this area for being for dark night skies. And down in the bottom right-hand corner is a picture of one of these kits that we have assembled over at the Ontario Community Library, as well as over, I believe, 2 at the Harney County Library, available for folks that are here in the area, or heck, if you're just visiting, if you're coming camping at Sucker Creek State Park or visiting the Malheur Wildlife Refuge, and you're going to be out for the evening going to the Steens, then that's what we're trying to do, is use these sky quality meters there in the plastic bag to gather dark night sky data about, well, about the sky, right? So this map is not made up from dense data network of how dark the sky is. This is light intensity. So this is where the lights are emitting from in towns and population. And then based on that, how far is the light emanating? So we need some better concrete data to show just how dark this area is. So we hope to modify how some of the slopes of these circles look, right? Especially around Ontario, to make some transects leaving Ontario to see how it gets darker and darker as we go to Sucker Creek State National or State Natural Area, which we're getting readings of like 22, which I think it tops out at 25 or 26. And excuse me, I don't exactly know the units of the device either, but this is a sky quality darkness meter. And of course, if you live elsewhere and you're going to become a dark night sky advocate, I imagine that these units are also useful in other places as well to gather that data. Okay. As a scientist by heart, by nature, geologist, I love gathering the data. Okay, well, a little bit of recap from things that we looked at before. Here's the winter circle, if you remember. Here's Orion that had come up. Winter circle, I usually start with Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky that hangs down there far in the south in the winter. Sirius, Rigel, Aldebaran, the eye of the bull, the Taurus constellation, Capella way up there, Castor and Pollux, the Gemini twins, Procyon, the little dog, and then back to Sirius, the big dog. Of course, with Betelgeuse, the red giant star right there in the middle. And that kind of makes this oval here known as the winter circle. You could call it the winter football, since that's football season if you'd like. But I like to think that this is a really easy feature to look at, to name the big stars. Again, next year, folks. Actually, right now, Gemini is just going down the horizon as it gets dark. And we're going to use that a little bit tonight to talk about that. So in March, then we pivoted to the north and we learned about Polaris using the Big Dipper. It's pretty easy to find, but it looks like a long handle with a cup at the end. Okay, it's shown over here in the diagram. And you use the two stars at the end of the cup, Marek, the bottom of the cup, and Dubhe, the top of the cup. Align those two and go about 24 degrees away and you find a star of equal brightness, and that's Polaris, the North Star. And so this picture back in March, Marek and Dubhe were pointing kind of like this over to North Star. Well, as the night goes along, this circles, okay? So you get further and further into the night and the pointer stars point like this, but also further and further into the year. Okay, so now Big Dipper is way over here. If you look up to the northwest and really high up towards the zenith or directly overhead, you'll find Big Dipper. Align Marek and Dubhe and they go right to Polaris. Okay, so we did that. And also the next month we talked about the ecliptic, the path that the sun makes through the night sky. So this time again, we pivoted, went from south to north and then now back to the south to talk more about the Zodiac constellations. When we talk about the winter circle, of course, some of those are in the Zodiac, Gemini and Taurus. But the ecliptic, or the path of the sun, passes right through those, as well as the rest of the winter circle, and the other 13 constellations of the Zodiac. So we started to focus on learning one at a time there. I believe that we certainly had talked about Aldebaran or Taurus with Aldebaran. We talked about Gemini and Cancer. We might not have gotten over to Leo in this night. Okay, then let's see, we continued with some constellations to find Leo, the sickle shape here, which is just going down over the horizon. Okay, and then barely number 5, seeing Spica, the brightest star of the Virgo constellation, coming up in the southeast at that time. Okay, now tonight, this is our main area of the night sky. These are the main constellations that we're going to get the pleasure of looking at tonight. So last month, we pivoted again over to the north so we could appreciate the change around Polaris. Outlining the Big Bear or Ursa Major constellation rather than just looking at it looking at it as the Big Dipper. So here's the tail of the dipper and then the cup, but that's only, you see a quarter of the bear, or maybe about half of the bear. So we filled in the rest of the bear, and don't forget the bear's ears there. Then talked a little bit, just barely, about these other features of Stellarium, that it can show you other things like this, like a meteor shower, which are, you know, as the Earth is passing through space, if we pass through the ancient tail of a comet, we're passing through this weird area of space dust, and we have an increase in the amount of tiny rocks that fall through the atmosphere and glow because of the friction. Now that's a meteor, or a meteorite as it's falling, and a meteor if we pick it up, or a shooting star if you want to, you know, use that language. So because the Earth goes in a pretty repeatable pattern around the sun every single year, we end up passing through the same comet trails and the same areas of gas and dust. So we've observed through time the same areas of the night sky will have a meteor shower, which is just an increased density of shooting stars at a certain time of year. And this is one, the Tau Hercules, that was pointed out at the time between May 19th and June 19th of being visible. Looking at the constellation Hercules, that's where the concentration of these things are from. So just acknowledging that there's other features to Stellarium, there's other depth to the observation of the night sky. Maybe if you want to use binoculars or a telescope, there's a lot of layers to this. But I really like, you might call it camping stargazing, right? Or night sky stargazing with the naked eye, or maybe some binoculars, okay? Let's see, oops. We also focused a little bit on the little bear to fill that in, brought us down to Cassiopeia. These are all, of course, part of last month's recording. Cepheus, which is part of the circumboreal constellations, filling the rest of those in. We had looked at Cassiopeia during the first look at the northern night sky, but we didn't look at Cassiopeia's husband, Cepheus, that makes this kind of box or rocket shape here. Okay, then we did look at this, and I encourage to do this as you practice while you're out looking at the stars. Practice what you have just learned, but also find a new inquiry, right? So an example of the new inquiry, if we were practicing the night sky at the north, the circumpolar constellations, and looking at Polaris, you could question, what is that bright star that's coming up over there in the south or in the northeast corner? And so that's what the question mark is out about here, this big old bright star. That's the star Vega that's in the Lyra constellation. We're gonna focus on that here in a minute too, after I start up Stellarium. Then I brought up Lyra to bring up to look at one of the final circumboreal constellations, which is these two eyes here that sit above Vega, or above Lyra, and that's the two eyes of Draco the dragon. Okay, here's the triangle of those three, these kind of creepy brighter eyes, and then the whole constellation that curves around the little bear over here. See, there's the little bear, kind of a protector dragon. Is how I see that. Okay, Draco the dragon. So we shifted a little bit to finally fit in Hercules, since it was mentioned, and that sits above Vega. Deneb and the swan first. Below Vega, another bright star coming up in the northeastern quadrant, and that makes this beautiful cross right here, more illuminated here. And you can see as you watch through the night, if you go out every hour, or through the entire summer, if you go out at about 10 o'clock every night, you'll see this star progress, as well as all the other stars, through the night sky. But this one's unique because it has this interesting cross shape that looks a lot like a goose or a swan flying overhead, some kind of waterfowl. So that's what this is named after, Cygnus the swan with the star Deneb. Okay, Deneb. And then we looked at Hercules. Okay, there's Hercules, kind of oddly shaped because he's wrestling these serpents, or the Hydra, the multi-headed Hydra, right? Now we'll see Hercules hopefully again tonight. So I'm gonna pull up Stellarium, and I used a thumb drive to transfer my presentation, and obviously I grabbed the wrong one. So you're gonna we're going to have to do this a little bit on the fly then, huh? That's okay. So we're running Stellarium. It already starts running in the south. I'm going to use the time and date window bar over here to advance the time a couple hours forward. So I was thinking about 10:30 would be about the time I'd head out tonight. The sun has gone down. As the sun goes down, the really brightest stars start to pop out first. You know, first star I see tonight, wish I may, wish I might. And if you wait until, you know, say midnight, then the sun's going to be way long gone and all the stars are going to be out. But if you go about an hour after the sun goes down, half an hour, you get this wonderful in between where the brightest stars, say the brightest, you know, a couple hundred of stars are very visible. So about 10:30, we're using Stellarium. As I said, here's Spica up there, the Virgo constellation. Let's pivot over towards the sunset, over here towards the west. There's the moon, 30% waxing that's coming up. And can you, and I had a question mark on the slide, can you find Leo the lion? And of course, we had done this in the past by, this is, you know, a silly question, rhetorical question, by finding the backwards question mark, right? So there it is, backwards question mark, ending with the star Regulus, or the heart of the lion. So if you look along the ecliptic, the moon and the sun and the Venus, they're all along the ecliptic. You can also see the Gemini twins. There they are. Some of the first zodiac constellations we learned in this series that's headed down. And then there's Capella, even the very top of the winter circle that's on the way down. So we've defined the ecliptic. We know where the zodiac signs are. There's Gemini, clearly visible. There's Leo. And if we pivot again over to the south, so remember, this is a dome shape, right? So that's why we you have some funny shape to the sky if you do stuff like this. But so if we keep that same arc, there's coming through Leo and over here to Virgo. Virgo's a really long constellation that extends way up here to the crown of her head, way down here to the a little sprig of wheat that she's holding in her hands. Okay, then if we pivot a little bit further and looking directly south, one of my favorite zodiac constellations here, there's some space in between of things we'd like to talk about, but this is going to be a constellation that comes up all summer and is very recognizable, just like one of these landmarks. Because notice, basically between Leo, the backwards question mark, and all the way down here to this constellation, there's a lot of open space where there's not a lot of stars, just Spica and some others.
Hey, Sammy, we're seeing a different screen.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said that. Thank you, sir. I'm not sure who that was, but thank you.
That was Bill.
Bill, awesome. Thank you, Bill. Well, I'll be. It does say that. It's like, your screen is I've been talking for 10 minutes on that darn thing. I'm so sorry. Now what do you see, you guys?
We got it now.
Okay, thank you so much, Bill. And now I see the comments have popped up, and Bill is like, hey, we can't see that. And I'm so sorry, you guys. Thanks for speaking up, Bill. And sometimes that's what it takes. I know you guys didn't want to interrupt. Okay. All right. Well, I will go back to Stellarium. And so we started in the south. Let me show you the date window over here again, since I described that so thoroughly. And there's all these other bells and whistles down here that are really fun. So here's how to change the date and the time. I changed it to about 10:30 tonight. We started looking in the south. What's going on here?
Sammy, also this is Debbie.
Yeah.
You've got something on your screen there. It's gone now. It was showing up. It might have been the grid of the photo, of us, but it was covering up over on the right-hand side, but it looks like it's uncovered now.
Okay. Okay, good. I hope that worked. Well, geez, you guys. Okay, back to stargazing. Well, this is going to be a terrible recording, you guys. I think I'll of course bring up the regular presentation. I think I might just do a self-recording of that one to get the information all out there from those slides. But you know, this is still really important because we're actively, lively using Stellarium tonight, which I think is pretty cool. So again, there's that date window. I'm going to shift over to the west to point out the previous constellations that we've learned. There's the backwards question mark of Leo, as I was talking about, with the star Regulus, the heart of the lion. Venus is headed down over here. There's the Gemini Twins. So we've defined the ecliptic. Okay, the moon is along the ecliptic. All the celestial heavenly bodies, Saturn, right there along the ecliptic. So between Regulus and the backwards question mark of Leo, all the way over here to this constellation, there's a lot of open space with, you know, a bright star in there. That's Spica, Virgo, the Virgo constellation that extends pretty high up here to the crown of her head. And this is a sprig of wheat that she holds in her hand. Now, the reason I point this out, this open space that's through here, is because this is, if the Milky Way, that's a disk, right? And we live along this Milky Way disk, when we are looking in this direction towards Spica and Leo, we are actually looking away from the disk. Where when we look at this band that goes all the way up to Polaris, we're looking along the disk of the Milky Way. So there's a lot more stars and gas and a lot more density there. So we see that actually in the night sky. And of course, that's what's known as the Milky Way. And even if I don't do any programming stuff with the Stellarium program, just by the stars in the night sky alone, you can figure out where the Milky Way is because of the density of these stars. So here in the night sky, you'll start to see, and I haven't said the name of the constellation yet, Scorpius. This is Scorpius or Scorpio that you might hear of in the popular Zodiac kind of thing, the astrologers. But in astronomy, this is the Scorpius constellation. And this red star marks, I kind of think about it again as the heart of the scorpion, the big red heart there, or Antares. And these three stars here are really easy to pick out in relationship to Antares. And then the hook of the scorpion extends down here, or the stinger in the back. So we've transected some more of the zodiac here, but I wanted to draw your attention, since we're going to leave this open and dead space. I was trying not to say dead space, this open space behind us. I do want to acknowledge this star that's really high up towards the zenith. So Spica is going to be about 40 degrees off of the horizon. Okay, so 90 degrees is straight up, 0 degrees would be at the horizon. And about 40 degrees is Spica, at least where I live. I'm at 45 degrees latitude. So depending on where you live, it's going to change. But then above it, about 30 degrees is the bright star Arcturus. And Arcturus is in the Bootes constellation, a herdsman. And that star also has, like the hunter of Orion, has two dogs that hang out with him. And so here's Spica. And if you look above Spica, almost all the way to the zenith, looking to the south, right, you'll see Arcturus. But then just before you get to Arcturus, there's these two little cute stars here. I mean, they're like the cutest little, like, red stars. Okay, they're tiny, but they're very, very bright for how tiny they are. And they are really red too. It's a little hard to see with the naked eye, but with binoculars, you can see those. And those are the hunting dogs. So just like Orion on the other side of the sky, the hunter, big, long constellation of space, has two dogs, Sirius and Procyon, Earth's Canis Major and Canis Minor. Arcturus, the herdsman, also has two herding dogs. I think somewhat reflecting the knowledge of, you know, this is all Greek stuff, that there was maybe different lifestyles and different transitions of people that lived as herds people or hunts people, hunter-gatherers, and agriculturalists. All of those different types of lifestyles from early humanity and civilization are reflected in some of these constellations, just like remnants like the tail of the big bear, right? Okay, so the last thing I'd like to share tonight, so we filled in some of the ecliptic, and we're going to do that more next week or next month as Sagittarius comes up, okay? But we also looked at the herdsman, Boutet's constellation, and then the last thing I want to come over to the southeast to look back at Vega. Last week we saw Vega coming up, or last month we saw Vega coming up over the horizon. And we also noticed Deneb over here with the big wings, the big wingspan right here. Deneb, the bright star, and then here's the long torso of the goose, and then the long neck out here, the end of the goose. And notice even from the last image that I showed you, the goose was flying this way over the barn here. And now it's starting to fly all the way over the sky. And you can just imagine every night that you come out here at the same time of night, it's going to advance a little bit further through the sky and fly across the sky. Okay. Now let me fill in one more important star to that. We looked at Vega. We looked at Deneb last week. So those aren't new. Their position's a little bit different. I want to recognize this nice star down here, Altair. This is part of, it's an eagle constellation, Arija, right? Is that right? Well, this constellation that can be found with the two, it looks a little bit like Orion's belt. So oftentimes people confuse Orion's belt thinking that in the summertime they saw Orion's belt. And usually they're either seeing the Scorpion 3, okay? These three or those three, or they're seeing Altair. But as you know now, Orion isn't up during the summer. It's a winter constellation. Okay, you would only see it about like 3 a.m. in the summer. So Altair, if we shift a little bit out here to the east, these three stars, just like the winter circle, this makes another beautiful, simple shape of the night sky or of anything, a triangle. So this can be referred to as the summer triangle that involves these constellations, Deneb, Lyra, and Arija, okay, or the star Altair. So the summer triangle, you can watch proceed through the night sky. We will also see the zodiac, the rest of the complete zodiac come up with Sagittarius, and the rest of the Milky Way will fill in some of the stars on the Milky Way next month. Okay, and then also this open space right here that represents us looking away from the Milky Way are stars like Spica, or way far out there away, Arcturus of the herdsman constellation. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'd like to take some Q&A. It's 6:23 is what I see on my watch. So that leaves us a good 7 minutes of open Q&A, and I can use Stellarium for that. There's some bells and whistles I didn't even look at today, but maybe we'll do that next time, only because I wasn't planning on doing live Stellarium with you, right? Okay, let's see, the chat is open, and okay, so, okay, I did get something from Debbie, and hopefully others, Bill, I assume you were able to see the Stellarium material. And it looks like maybe some others had some problems still. Okay, but let's open for Q&A. You can unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question, or raise your hand and I'll call on you. You're also welcome to use the chat, and I can read that aloud, is what I'd usually do there. Okay. So I got more great information for you if you'd like to go over some more night sky. I never like to waste a minute, but I do want to make sure there's ample space for folks to ask a question. Could you go over that one thing again? Anything like that?
Could you go over just the basics if you weren't using Stellaria? I mean, I just downloaded the free version, but I'm not seeing the details that you have. I'm assuming it's because of you have a paid version. But could you just rewind and just the basics? If I go out tonight at 10:30, and I know I wrote down that there's, that I'm going to see Vega in Lyra tonight, right? In the Northeast.
Yep.
At about, I don't know what was it 40% off the horizon? But after that, I think you mentioned a few more, and I'd just like a review of that because I got stuck on trying to see where I was at, so.
Okay, and remember that this is, I know I said that probably this recording will be shoddy, but I think I'll include it on YouTube and maybe record something else because we went through the information here. But yeah, you're right. Without the clear slides and the bullets, I wasn't able to articulate that. So we actually let's shift our attention to the southern night sky tonight as you're going out. And in the south, about 40 degrees up, you're going to see the star Spica, which is in the Virgo constellation. And along with material that we went over in the last couple of months, you can identify Leo and Gemini going down in the west. Now that makes the arc of the ecliptic, or those stars all represent the zodiac. So I just kind of brought us along an arch to go to Spica, and then I filled in all the way to Scorpius, which you might be able to see coming up in the south, between south and southeast. Okay, so there's the zodiac. We'll fill some more of that in through the summer. But then tonight, as you identify Spica, also look a little bit higher up to see Arcturus up at the zenith. Okay, and that way, what we've done now is kind of stitch together a whole map of that part of the night sky, kind of like the United States, right? Sometimes I have to go to somewhere in the state or drive a road to feel like I know it. And if we were to completely do the zodiac, we wouldn't get the stuff around. So I wanted to make sure we acknowledged Arcturus tonight. Okay, so we kind of have that arc, Spica, Scorpius, Arcturus, and then yes, I did shift over to the eastern sky to pick up on Vega and Deneb to finish out with Altair to make the summer triangle. And actually, that's going to be pretty, it's going to be between east and Vega will be a little bit closer to the, say about 80 degrees. If you go 80 degrees from north, 90 is directly east, and go a little bit back, you'll find Vega, bright star. Look at last week's presentation or last month's. But then Altair is the new one, and that's actually in the southeastern quadrant. So that's how we came to that arching around the night sky. So if I would just give the number of stars to recap, we're looking for Spica. We're looking for Antares of the Scorpio, and Arcturus, the herdsman. And then the three of the summer triangle, two that were from last month, that's Deneb and Vega. Then the last star is Altair. Okay, and so customarily, I like to send out the slide materials, you guys. Make sure you have access to the YouTube recording, this Zoom recording. And then I like to hand out a little worksheet too, that's kind of a fill in the blank with some of these stars labeled. Okay, and that should come through email sometime tomorrow, usually about a day after the presentation at night. And boy, I just apologize for not having the right presentation tonight and giving you guys a bum link at first, but I think using Stellarium in these presentations is going to be a good way to go. So some feedback on that would be, as long as I'm using the right screen, right, Bill? Some feedback on that would be great. Well, thank you all very much. We are at time. So I took Debbie's question, and that did take a little while. If you have a question, please use the chat, or you can unmute and ask, and I'll hang out as long as there's some night sky questions. But I don't want to keep any of the rest of you waiting on the edge of your seat. I am going to stop the recording now.